Good afternoon. Welcome to our workshop today. I'm so glad that you are here with us. Today, we're going to talk about Got Kids. We're going to talk about some good information about virtual learning, some different parenting advice. Of course, we have the Sage here. For those who don't know me, just in case you're new to our workshop today, I am Whitney Middlebrooks. I am the Family Self-Sufficiency Coordinator with the Lexington Housing Authority. And I have Miss Sage, and I'll allow her to introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Sage Chioma, and I am the program coordinator of BOSS Initiative, which stands for Building Our Success Stories. And we try to meet once a month with some kind of empowerment or information that we know you can apply to your day to day life. And each month in our Got It, Get It Good series, we have Got Kids this month. For those of you who have children and are very concerned, all of us, because school has opened, we have with you an expert, Dr. Sabrina Cook Davis, who is a supervisor for the parent educators at Children's Home Society. And I'm going to let her fill in the gaps with how long she's been doing this and what she really would like you to take away from today's session.
Thank you, Sage, for that introduction. I am Dr. Sabrina Cook Davis, and I'm with Children's Home Society, where I have been a part of the education team now for about 17 years. So my passion is children and families. I have two children of my own who are 18, a recent graduate of Guilford County Schools, and also a 16-year-old who is attending Triad Math and Science Academy. So totally understand where a lot of our parents are right now and trying to adjust and do the best they can given all that is going on in our lives right now. So hopefully we can use this time today to just, share and dialogue and support each other in this really important work that we have in being parents. Maybe share some resources, some ideas, and actually just give us a chance to sort of unwind and hopefully gain some techniques and some skills that will be helpful as you journey on to see a few more months. At the end of the year, 2020 has been tough. So as we get closer wrapping up this new year and starting fall, that we can have some tips that can hopefully, rejuvenate us and to keep us pressing forward. So I look forward to it.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you guys so much for introducing yourselves. As mentioned, Dr. Davis mentioned this, just we definitely want people to comment. If you have a question or if you have something that you want to share, please comment. I'll be sure to highlight your comment and have her answer it to the best of her abilities. But again, we just want to engage. We want to get some good content out here and just help you all along the way of this wonderful virtual learning and just various things that we're all dealing with as it relates to working from home, whatever it may be. So to not hold us up anymore, we'll go ahead and proceed with our presentation today.
Okay. You want me to start?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. All righty. So we just got a few slides. Not much. I don't want to take away from any discussion that we have. I know that Whitney will be checking out the chat box to see if there's any questions or any feedback. Please feel free to use that so we can make this as interactive as possible. I don't need to be the only one talking because I do know a little bit of something about this, but I do consider us all experts of our own children. So any information that you want to share, feel free to do so at this time. I love the topic, the title of this workshop today, by the way. It immediately made me chuckle when I saw it. And so I want to start off talking a little bit about how we handle stress. Because I think that a lot of what we're dealing with right now is we are connecting to stress, and we are all living in a pandemic. So we got to connect with that a few minutes. I want to start with that first and recognizing to everybody today that we are living in this is a traumatic experience. So this is all shared trauma right now. And oftentimes, I know you don't think about trauma as looking like this, but if we're real about this as a mental health professional, we have to acknowledge that what we are currently experiencing is a traumatic experience. And having said that, we have to look for ways to take care of ourselves. So as parents and caregivers, That's going to be really important because you are so involved with taking care of your kids that sometimes you forget to take care of you. So the first thing I want to share today is just to make sure, and I did when I saw this, it immediately resonated with me, is the 5x5 rule. And if it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't even worry yourself about it 5 minutes, because hey, we are in a pandemic and we are talking about big picture, just getting by day to day. And sometimes, because it is very stressful to us, we can get in the weeds a little bit too much and start to overwhelm ourselves about what we're thinking about. But I'm here to tell you, if it's not going to matter to you 5 years down the road, don't you worry about it for 5 minutes. So just focus on what it is that you know you have to do, things that are going to make you more effective in your parenting, as well as to hopefully help you be more successful in taking care of your children. So picking and choosing your battles. We all know we cannot control what happens with how they're going to be educated, whether the school's going to, we have no control over any of that. So a lot of it is controlling the controllable. So if you do have to take care of your child at home, all right, then how can I control that environment? What can I do about that environment? How can I make that environment as enriching as possible? So let's start with that, the 5x5 rule. So just remembering that, you know, if you're not going to be able to control that environment, what can I do about that? We're not going to worry about it right now. Okay. So the next thing, I wanted to spend some time today in looking at parenting traps. And primarily the reason why I want to talk about parenting traps is because we are all stressed out. We can be more likely to fall into traps. Now, these traps are pretty common, okay? And all of us fall into them at some point in time. If you have children, if you've been around children, you're going to fall into some of these traps. But I think we're probably more likely to fall into them now because we are stressed and because we are going through a lot right now. And we are actually going through a grieving process. We are grieving a lot of things that may have been lost to us. We've not had much of a summer. A lot of us have not been able to do the things we would typically like to do. We're stressed out about work. It may be school that's stressing us out. We are grieving a lot of process. We're dealing with people who may have lost family members due to COVID, or who family members who've been ill. So because you are under a tremendous amount of stress or a greater level of stress, parents are more likely to parent ineffectively. That is just a fact. It's not that anything's wrong with anybody. It's just a fact. You're not your best self when you are stressed out. So I wanted to talk about some of these traps, mainly just so you identify them. And you can say, oh, I've heard this. I think I'm doing this, so I need to check myself. So I'm just going to quickly go through what these are. And you can just sort of self-reflect for a minute to say, have I done those things? And so I want to start with the first one, which is the it's all their fault trap. And a lot of these are pretty self-explanatory. It's all their fault is, you know, everything that's going on wrong right now with parenting or with me or whatever, it ain't my issue. It's the kids' issue. You know, they made me do this. You know, they upset me today. You know, they pushed every button they could push today. You know, everything is going wrong because it's all the kids' fault. And a lot of times, you know, when we are trying to figure out how to put one foot in front of the other, it is so much easier to place the stress, the guilt, the shame, the frustration, whatever it is, somewhere else. And oftentimes our children, unfortunately, get a lot of that. So it's all their fault. It's all their problem. Okay. They're the reason why we have these issues. They're the reason why my grocery bill, it has tripled over the past, few months, because I got to feed them, so much more because they're here. It's all their fault. Okay. That's the first trap. Second trap is the martyr trap. So for mothers, I think we are very, very likely to do this. The martyr is the person that puts everything they can into their parenting. They put their whole body, mind, soul into their parenting. The problem with that comes, though, is that when you do all of that, you neglect other things that are also important. You neglect your relationships. You might even neglect responsibilities at work because your whole world is focused on making sure that every piece of your parenting is right. I'm going to save the day. I am super mom. I am all things wonderful, and I'm going to save the day. That's the martyr trap. Okay. Second, the third one is the negative parent. The negative parent is just a parent who cannot seem to see anything positive in anything that's going on with their children. Not only with their children, but with everything else that's going on in their life. They sort of live in this negative space. And it takes up a lot of energy, as you all know, much more energy to be negative than it is to be positive. So if you are that parent who is in that space where you cannot seem to see the light of day, you may find yourself saying things that are negative, not being very complimentary to your children, not being complimentary to other people, just really in a space where you're not seeing a lot of light. That's the negative trap, negative parent trap. The next trap is the leave them alone trap. If I just leave them alone, they'll be fine. They're just going through a phase. They'll be okay. I just need to get over this hump and they'll be fine. Leave them alone parent trap can be dangerous because it takes away from what we know is important in being a proactive parent. And that means that you're kind of addressing issues as they come up. The leave them alone parent doesn't do that. They say it'll pass. It'll go away. It's just a phase they're going through. Now, let me just say that and play devil's advocate. Some of that is true. Sometimes if you do just leave stuff alone, it'll be just fine. But there are situations where you do need to address it. So if there are signals, and I'm going to show a slide later that shows that, where you feel like, my child needs some help. We're struggling right now. I'm struggling. My child is struggling. That is not a good time to just leave stuff alone and we'll just see how it all comes out. Not always the case. So you got to be really careful about that. So that's a really important trap to think about. The next trap is the perfect parent trap. If I'm just a perfect parent, everything will work out just fine. I'm the perfect parent. Everything in the world, all my ducks are going to align. If I do everything right, if I cross every T and dot every I, then my child is going to be just fine. Well, we all know that is very unrealistic. That is very unlikely to happen because none of us are perfect, right? The perfect parent is not the perfect parent. So we can be the perfect parent to our children and make 15 mistakes in one day. Okay, so we have to give ourselves permission and grace to say, I am not a perfect parent. I don't have to be a perfect parent, and that's okay. So that's a trap for us. If we get into that whole idea that if I'm just perfect in everything I do as a parent, then everything is going to be okay. The next one is the perfect child. So if my child is perfect, so if they do everything perfectly, then I'm going to be okay. Not the case. First of all, that's unrealistic for the child because they're not going to be perfect. They're just like us. They're going to make mistakes. They're stressed out just like we are through this important time of trying to put them back in school and figure out what that looks like. Not going to be perfect. So when we put ourselves in that parenting trap of I'm trying to raise perfect children, that's going to be stressor for everybody involved. Then the very last one is it's all my fault. It's all my fault that, my child is not doing well in school right now. It's all my fault that, my child is struggling. It's all my fault that my child may be dealing with depression. You take on every single burden of the child or of anything, it's not even just about your children. It's about other things that might be going on in your life, but it's all my fault. I'm the reason why all this is going on. And so a lot of these traps are traps that if we're not very careful, we'll find ourselves in. Now, as I said before I started these, sometimes you may find yourself in any of these traps because it goes back to that one of a perfect parent. None of us are perfect. So we may be here. The idea is not to live there. Okay. Don't want to pitch up a tent and take residence in any of these traps because these traps, they drain you as a parent. They increase your anxiety. They increase your stress levels, and you are less effective in your parenting when you stay in any of these situations for too long. So that's why I wanted to identify them because I don't want anybody to live in any of these particular parenting traps for too long period of time because it starts to drain you. It starts to wear you out. You're not going to be as effective, and you take away some of the joy that you have of being the wonderful parents that I know you are.
I have a comment actually
Yes,
from our
sure.
YouTube. I have Miss Bethany Ely left a message. She said, this has actually been a great time for me personally to actually spend quality time with my child, dig into creative juices and focus on physical and mental health. This has been a healthy regroup for me. So, and this time has actually been good. Do you have any comments on that, Dr. Davis?
I think that's a great affirmation of doing positive things and figuring out the good in all of this. You know, how many of us have reconnected with taking care of ourselves more physically? I know I have. I'm going to walk this afternoon. I'm trying to get, because I like to be out in the sun. As you all know, that vitamin D is very good for us. It makes us feel better. So yes, I think that is a great point, Bethany, to bring that up and highlight that we can look at a time, for us to reset. And the pandemic has been part. How many of us sit down and eat more with our families and eat dinner and spend more time connecting in that way? So there's a lot of positive that we can reflect on right now. People might be connecting to hobbies that they let go, passions that they cast to the side. So really being able to focus and spend some quality time, which is really what our children want from us anyway. Much prefer quality over quantity. So we now have a lot of quantity. So we may as well try to figure out how to make it quality, because we got a lot of time that we're spending now. So thank you for bringing that point. But that is just wonderful affirmation of taking positive and spinning that into what we're dealing with right now.
Thank you, Bethany.
Yes, thank you for sharing. Anybody else have any comments about the parenting traps or any feedback about that?
I just want to say I like the way I've never seen. I don't have children, but being able to see that kind of laid out, I could see just even sometimes with maybe my nieces and nephews, and when I'm helping or just hearing my sister or my brother talk, I can kind of see that. I think they probably went through all of those emotions probably
Yes.
at some point during this time. So seeing it highlighted is, I just appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. And I think part of what I like to do and why I've been in this role for so long is that normalizing education of parents is what I love to do. We all need to feel like it is perfectly normal to need to say, "Hey, I've done every last one of those. Okay, I've been in every last one of those groups. I've been every last one of those parents." So I think it normalizes where we all are. It destigmatizes saying I need some help as a parent. I think for right now, especially parents sometimes feel very isolated. And that is part of what we want to do today is help bridge some of those gaps that people might feel in that, you are not alone in this. There are, a gamut of emotions that we're all feeling right now, whether you are a parent or not, just like you said, Whitney, you can recognize it in your loved ones. You can see it. You can share that, share what you've learned. So you don't have to be a parent to be around. Everybody's been around kids. So you can see when people are in trouble or when people are struggling, and it's a good way to be able to pass on some information and share that information. So I'm glad it's helpful and hopefully enlightening. Because what I want to do is hopefully have us think more proactively as parents. And when you know better, you really do better. So when you have some education around what these traps are, then now you can say, oh, okay, I didn't even realize that was something that I was doing. Okay, but now I know it. So now I can do something about it.
And Dr. Davis, I really can appreciate you saying how parents, it's okay for them to need help, because I think a lot of times parents don't know how much support they need until they get some,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
they're often just trying to do the best that they can, or sometimes learning how to do something different than our family system might translate to them that I'm a bad parent.
Mm-hmm.
I got to do it the exact way my mom or my dad did, although they know that might not have worked so well, but they don't have alternatives until they take a workshop. And a lot of times parents are forced because of parenting classes or crisis before they actually get the support. And that's not fair to parents.
That's right.
It's not fair. We should be giving them support all along, not once there's a crisis. So I
Right.
appreciate that.
Yeah, and it takes away from that reactionary parenting that I just mentioned earlier. We want parents to be proactive and not reactive. And so to your point, Sage, that's exactly what that is. We're trying to provide, supports around parents proactively. So they do have the supports that they need before things get to a place where the family has been turned upside down and chaotic
Mhm.
and challenges that are overwhelming to families. We don't want families to get into that spot.
Yes.
Have a comment from Facebook from Miss Brandy Spencer. She was saying that her son is a senior this year and he's ready to go back. Do you have
Yeah.
any type of advice or support that you can give Miss Spencer, as children are just like, I'm over this? Like,
Yes.
what do you say to?
Yeah, and I don't imagine it. I lived through that, Miss Spencer. The last few months of my son's senior year was completely hijacked. And I constantly worried about him because I knew it was his senior year and he did not get a chance to do a senior trip. He did not take senior pictures. He did not have a full graduation. There were so many things that he grieved his last few months of his senior year. I credit myself with raising or trying to raise a resilient child. And I tried to talk to him about the spirit of gratitude and said, son, let's look at the things that you have in your life that are positive, that are working for you. You're a solid student. You have friends. He had teachers that were still connected with him. We tried to find things that kept him in the spirit of gratitude, but also tried to help him keep planning. Just because your senior year has been hijacked, you still got to keep moving because you're a senior and you're going to graduate. So we tried to figure out things to keep him engaged and involved, but also allowing him to talk about his feelings. And he kept saying over and over, this is just my senior year just sucks. So helping him to acknowledge that we get it. It does suck. I could not imagine my senior year being the way his senior year was. It was very difficult. But we tried to take that spirit of gratitude and keep, honing in on that thing every single day. Try to give him encouragement in the midst of all that was going on with the senior year, dealing with all the racial tension and anxiety that, of course, because I'm raising an African-American child, that we had to address as well in the midst of all of that. So all of those things happening. So I understand, raising a son who wants to go back to school his senior year, because there again, that's a loss. That's a loss. So having him talk about it, encouraging him to talk about it, but supporting him and say, we're going to take this one day at a time, and practicing that spirit of gratitude. I think is what got us through the last few months and really taking, as much as we could to accomplish, look at what he had accomplished and highlight it. So I would encourage that as well, for your son to celebrate all he is as a senior now, and try to look for moments to really celebrate that for him. I've been seeing pictures on Facebook where seniors are taking senior pictures. He did get a chance to do that. He just couldn't take his cap and gown pictures. So I would say, every moment that he has, man, play that thing up big time his senior year. Because every second is going to count with him this year, because we don't know what the future is going to hold with this pandemic and what it may look like as he progresses. But he will get through this. He will get through it. And so you just make him feel like that he is doing the great things that I know he is. And that will make a big difference for him. It will make a whole lot of difference.
She just wanted to comment that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's rough. It is not, it's not easy, Miss Spencer. I totally understand it. But it sounds like, that just the fact that you're acknowledging that, he is, he does want to go back. Of course he does. This is his senior year. This is monumental in the life of a child, a senior year that he will never forget. But he will be able to reflect on as he gets older and say, you know what, I got through this. I was able to get through this. And it does not take away from his accomplishments of being a senior. I think that's what I had to keep telling, my son as well. This does not take away from everything you have done. You may not have all the pomp and circumstance that you are used to or thought you were going to get your senior year, but it does not minimize everything that we think you've done and that we are so proud of you. So you just keep on doing what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Miss Spencer. Okay.
Okay. So the next thing I wanted to look at is, how do we nurture a child's mental health? And that kind of goes back to some of what could kind of, could connect to what some of Miss Spencer was saying. A lot of what our children are dealing with is difficult, right? It's overwhelming. They've never experienced anything like this. None of us have. So we are trying to help them with something that we haven't even experienced, right? None of us have been here before. So we're literally trying to figure this out as we live it and as we breathe it. So some things that I want all of us to remember is to be flexible. And that means being flexible in your parenting. It means being flexible with your child's education. It means having grace, because all of us are dealing with all this at the same time. It brings some type of commonality for us in our communities, in our churches. Everybody is dealing with this. So being flexible and learning, when to fold and when to hold and how to do that, because it's not going to always be perfect. Being fierce and being bold right now. And that, we're going to have to figure out creative ways to take care of our families and to educate our children. So being fierce and being bold, even when we're tired and broken down, trying to figure out a creative space to keep trying to nurture our children, to be forgiving and taking care of our own selves, be forgiving of ourselves as parents, to know we're not going to be perfect right now, and to be present. If ever there's a time, it goes back to what Bethany was saying, to be present. Now is the time. As we look around us and we see so many people that have lost family members, taking every single moment and really living and breathing in that moment and trying to spend the time that you do have with your children is going to be really important. So this is up here to not only talk about how to nurture your child's mental health, but to nurture yours as well. So things like I've got share your feelings and validate them. Let them validate theirs. To Ms. Spencer's point, allowing him to share his feelings and recognizing it's okay for him to be frustrated. It's okay for him to be angry. All of those feelings are very normal for a child to be having. Modeling healthy behavior. So the way we've seen families get out and exercise together during this time, and trying to figure out things that we can do as a family, we're modeling to our children how we would like for them to be patient, actively listen before, offering up any advice to your children. Listen to what they have to say. Part of what is great about this experience is that your children are learning how to problem solve. And that is a skill. We're not born to be problem solvers. So they're actually, gaining a skill right now in how to, solve problems. Nurture their health as well by telling them the truth. Our children are living with a lot of stuff going on around them. We can't sugarcoat where we are right now. And it's perfectly okay for us to say, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea how this is all going to turn out. We're trying to do the best we can. Nothing wrong with that. Children need to hear clear, transparent information because they're living it just like you are. Reaching out, physical touch, loving on your children as much as you can right now is going to be really important. Physical touch is what separates us from different species. It is the reason why when babies are born, we immediately have skin to skin contact. That is how we nurture each other. And the pandemic, with everything else is taken away, people's physical connection and being able to hug somebody that you see out in the grocery store that from church. Everybody's is very, very, reluctant to do that right now. But at home, reach out and love on those babies. Give them physical touch, because it really is what helps us to get through some really tough and difficult times. Model forgiveness, as I said before. Be present. Also responding calmly when their emotions are elevated. I've had more than one parent say to me, "I have never seen my child act like this before. They have never had a meltdown like this before." And, my response to that is always, we've never lived in a pandemic before either. None of us have ever gone through this before. So you may see things come out of your children you've never seen before. So be ready for that. Be prepared for that, and know that that is actually okay. It is okay for your children to have meltdowns. It is okay for them to cry. It is okay for them to be upset because we're all living through something that we've never, been through before. Being consistent as much as you can with your children, keeping a schedule and a routine. They've already been in one for so long now. But actually schedules and routines help children. They like that feeling of security to kind of know what's going to happen next. So you're doing that while still having some flexibility to also say, you know what, we just need to breathe. We're not doing anything today. We're just going to breathe and relax. So it's trying to find that balance of those two things. Practicing relaxation techniques with children and helping them to be able to decompress and de-escalate is going to be just as important for you as it is for them. So those are some things that I would say would be helpful in, helping your children with their mental health and helping them to get through some very difficult times right now. And
If I might add, I really appreciated, Dr. Davis, what you said in the beginning about controlling what is controllable. And that's a skill you could pass on to the child as well. You also talked about gratitude is something you worked as far as a skill for your son. So that because if we watch the news, it'll frighten any of us. And so sometimes, too much of the negative news reports, you might want to limit that somewhat in your household. You want to know what's going on. But I really can appreciate that if you, especially in that senior year, say all the things that is yours to do, focus on that,
yes,
and it'll keep you calm rather than the
yes.
things that we're uncertain about.
Yes, we
And
do.
I mean, all of
And it
us need
really is,
that.
one day at a time is 1 second at a time. And giving yourself grace to know that even with all that, you're still going to have days that are going to be very difficult. And that's just because you're human. So, and your children are as well. There are going to be days where you feel sorry for yourself and days that miss the things that you were doing that you can't do now, that you miss your family members that, may be away. I had 4 family members that tested positive for COVID all at the same time. They're all an hour and a half away from me, including my mother, who was hospitalized due to COVID. She works in the medical field and was hospitalized for a few days. Very, very frightening. And so, back to my point, controlling the controllables. I had absolutely no control over that. And where she was being so far away from me. So, faith is a lot of what we're dealing with right now for those of us who operate in that realm. That is what I can control. I can control my faith. And so that is where I was firmly planted and have been firmly planted during this entire pandemic. And so I've just tried to also give that to my children as well. I think this is a great opportunity for us to foster resiliency in children. And resiliency is a very important concept because let me tell you, when we talk about people who've gone through trauma, that's the difference in people who are able to keep moving through trauma is that they are resilient. So that is a skill. Resiliency usually comes from 3 places: school, family, community. And so we look for that in children. How do we foster that? It comes from those 3 areas. And so because they're not in school anymore, a lot of how they're going to be resilient is going to be at home. They're not out and about as much in the community anymore. So a lot of that resiliency, and that is just the ability to bounce back. That's all that word means. It's the ability to bounce back in times of adversity. So a lot of our resiliency is coming from home. And that is a skill. We know that is a protective factor. When you are buffering your children and allowing them to be able to say, you know what, I've been through something, but I can get over that. I can overcome that. That's a skill, and you're actually building a protective factor around them when they're more resilient. So this is a great time to build that skill in children. So, look at it as a learning lesson. And we're doing a lot of character education right now for our children at home. That gratitude, that faith, all those things that we want to see in our children. This is a great time to build on it and help them to be, greater as they grow into their adulthood. So it's a learning.
And modeling it too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I wanted to say I gathered some stuff about stress. If you don't mind, I just wanted to
Sure.
talk about it a little
Sure.
because everybody deals with stress differently. And so with your children, you might have one child that shows more resilience and the other one seems to take everything personally.
Mm-hmm.
So the CDC says that Some signs to look for, not all children are doing this, but you might have one, is excessive crying or irritation when they're young, very young children. They don't maybe have the words to say, I'm frightened, or I heard something I don't understand. Returning to behaviors that they've outgrown, excessive, she's going in there. Okay, excessive worrying or sadness, unhealthy eating or sleeping habits, irritability and acting out in teenagers, and poor school performance or avoiding school, difficulty concentrating, avoidance of activities enjoyed in the past, unexplained headaches or body ache. And in the worst case scenario, teenagers who might try to medicate themselves or be with friends who might be using. I only said that, and I'm glad she has that slide right there. She'll go into it more because I think it's really important that if your child, say, is not doing what they should do in school, or they holding their head down, I might want to yell and say, why don't you, when actually they might be showing symptoms of stress.
That is a great point. Yeah, I'm glad you read those because what we know about stress is that stress will kill you.
Mm.
It will kill you. 70 to 90% of all illnesses are stress related.
Wow.
And so it will take you out of here if you don't figure out a way to manage it. And I'm here to tell you, stress and anger are married to each other. They will never divorce.
Mm.
So when your stress levels go up, so does your anger levels. And so when you put those two together, it's a pretty, messy kind of a recipe right there. So those two are very closely related. And so for our children, oftentimes you may see them look like they're angry, and it's not. It's to Sage's point. It may be that they're stressed, and so these are some signs that I put up here to kind of piggyback on what she said. Recognizing warning signs, not only for you, but for them. Frustration, embarrassment, losing your temper, or feeling hopeless or out of control. Those are all some things to kind of look at for children. So allowing children to express themselves in an effective way as much as possible is going to be very important right now. Emotional competence is just as important as, a child being intellectually competent. You want your children to be able to express themselves when they're dealing with feelings, because it's a protective factor. And when we talk about the high rates of suicide that we see in young children now, it is alarming. It is alarming that we are seeing our young children successfully complete suicide. That is very scary to me. And so that being said, we've got to look at protective factors for our children. We have to look at finding safe ways for them to articulate their feelings. I'd say using the 3 R's. I always tell parents that through the nurturing parent curriculum: respect yourself, respect others, and respect the environment. As long as your child can articulate themselves using the 3 R's, let them do it. Let them tell you what's going on. Let them talk about themselves within those boundaries. Respect yourself, respect others, and respect the environment. So that means that you can talk about whatever you want to talk about in this house, but you're not breaking stuff. You're not throwing stuff. You're respecting the area that you're in. And those 3 R's spills over into everywhere they go. They can take them to school. Same thing. You can talk to your teacher about that grade that you got that you were not happy about, but use the 3 R's: respect her, respect yourself, and respect her classroom. So they can take the 3 R's wherever they go and be able to talk to anybody about anything. So that's a great lesson to teach children, but they do need to be able to experience all of those emotions in the gamut. And some of our children are going through developmental stages right now at home. So just because they're in a pandemic does not mean that they're stopping in their development. So you might have a teenager that's in the throes of adolescence right now, or a tween that's hormones are all over the place right now. So you add to that, they're at a very critical stage of development. They're living in a pandemic. So they may have all kinds of stuff happening. So making sure that you are giving grace to the fact that some of your children's behavior is normal. They are acting like a typical, whatever their age child, a 2-year-old, 5-year-old, 10-year-old, their behaviors are very typical. And so recognizing that, but also to Sage's point, if you see some of those things that are sort of highlighted or elevated a bit, and also if you're seeing patterns, that typically is another thing. If you're seeing, longer patterns of behavior of those things that we've talked about, that's something else that you would want to say, wait a minute, I need to check into that, because this is becoming a little bit overwhelming. This seems to be something that's been going on for a while. That's when you want to try to get some intervention and seek some help for that. And please do so. Do not wait too long to do that. You all are the experts on your children, so you know when something is askew. You know when something is not right. So make sure that you are getting adequate resources for your family if you feel like you need to get some outside resources. And I believe that may be my last slide. I think it is. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So, I would like to say if there are any questions or, any comments that anybody has at this time, I would be more than willing to take those. If there's anything anybody would like to share.
And could you type your email address in for those who are here? Because Dr. Davis has some handouts that are helpful, that reinforces, and I can email them to you, as well as a couple of resources of where, if you feel you need outside help for your child, that might
And
be in
I typed
data.
mine as well, Sage. I put mine in the chat in case anyone needs to reach out for any reason. I'm going to put my contact information in here as well, in case any parents might need any additional assistance after today.
Let's see. Just waiting. If they don't get theirs in, I do have Miss Spencer's and Miss Bethany's email addresses that we can definitely
I
get it.
have those two, but just in case there was someone else,
If anybody else is in the live, definitely
yeah,
put your email in.
if they could just put their email in. I would think some people have some discussion or questions because uh, Ms. Davis, you gave us a really, really, I love what you did. It's called transparent facilitation. And talking about what COVID and your family has endured is really helpful because there's none of us that haven't been impacted in some way, shape, or form. So
That
I
is correct.
really, yes.
I do have a comment from Miss Stephanie. She said, I've realized children may not be acting out more. It's just everyone is in the house more, especially at the beginning of the lockdown. So we're just noticing these things since we're around. So maybe we're around each other a lot more now. So you think that is the frustration is just everybody.
Yeah.
And now I'm just irritated.
Yes.
Mm.
It's like I can't escape. Like, where can I go? Right? Where can I go? Because it's somebody in every room in the house.
Right.
And if you have little children, especially, somebody showed it on Facebook. It was hilarious. She said, I can't even go to the bathroom. The baby's little fingers were coming in through the bottom of the door. And I was like, Lord, I have been there, done that. I can remember plenty of times being in the restroom and I see these little hands come up under the door. And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me right now? So yes, you cannot run. But
Right.
but what, the kids can't get away from you either. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's not just can the parents get away, but the kids need to get away too, and they can't. School
Yeah.
is not there. So their school is at home. So all of us need breaks from each other. So absolutely, that is a good point. That now everything is like, more clear because you're at home and everybody's getting on everybody's nerves and nobody seems to have any time to just breathe and get away from each other. So trying to find that time where everybody can have their own separate time is going to be really important, whatever that looks like for the family, where everybody can be safe, of course, but allowing time for people to just sort of have their own space
Yeah.
and time to get it together. Because you're
And
going to need all
something that about space is I actually saw a video where there was someone, it was, I think she was a teacher and she was having a frustration towards like maybe the superintendent or someone over that county. And she was just sharing that some of, even though there's not a lot of space, also parents be mindful that your child is also in class. And I think some parents haven't been able to easily adjust either. And they're just doing a lot of things in the background, which actually distracts the child, which
Yes.
actually distracts the entire class. And just being mindful that everybody can hear you. So that background noise, that background, it's a lot of things going on.
Yes.
And understand that sometimes people don't have that extra space to have that child in maybe a room, but we there has to be a way to make that work, because the child, you don't want that child to get one embarrassed. There has been some aspects of that, and
Yeah.
some parents are just like, they're not really that accommodating. And I'm not saying that anybody in this group would do that, but I just want to put that out, that parents, be mindful that your child is also in class, and that child has things that they have to do. The scenery, I know they're saying some parents are just kind of not properly dressed. I thought, I was a little concerned by that. I was like, oh no.
Oh
But
yeah.
that's been a thing. And I just think that we can't just think as the parent, like, this is my house. I understand. But we have to also make sure that child is prepared, that child is up in enough time, that they get dressed. They don't stay in their pajamas, because when the child's just laying around in their pajamas, how effective is it? How effective are they at learning? How
Right.
effective paying attention? So just make sure all the things that you would do when they were going to school, I think we have to make sure as parents or guardians that they're still doing that, even if they're at home. So I
Yeah.
just want to add that.
Thank you for sharing. That's a great point. Those are great points. Yeah. And also remember that their brains are still developing. They still need to be enriched, even though they're at home learning. Those same types of activities that they would be getting at school that help nurture all of their development, because we want to focus on the whole child, right? Not just one aspect. So those same thing, that child needs to get exercise. They would be having PE, so they need to get out and move around. They need fresh air. They need creativity. All those things that we will be talking about to help nurture their brain development at school, we must be doing at home as well.
Right. Awesome.
And a lot of what Dr. Davis spoke of is structure. And that ties into brain development too. A lot of people don't understand. And your brain works better when you have a routine, especially while it's still developing.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Right.
Because a lot of kids are staying up late on electronics. And then their concentration is poor when it's time for them to produce in the daytime.
Well,
And
a lot
that's
of them are also, because they have to spend so much time on electronics. We know that's not good for brain development anyway.
the
And we're
eyes.
already, dealing with a double-edged sword, because they have to now. They don't have a choice in order to go to
Mhm.
school. But we know that type of prolonged screen time is not good for brain development. So we've got to find time to allow our children to sort of disconnect from devices, because it's not good for brain development at all.
Well, that's a fight because I think when you're used to your screen time being fun, and
Yes,
now they have to adjust to their screen time being something they have to do.
right.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's hard. It is not easy. So encouraging them to take time out from the computer, to get up, to walk around, to move around, to go outside, to get fresh air. All those things help the brain to reset. So we encourage parents to do that, to encourage your children to take that time away, and to also make sure at night they have some time to disconnect from devices, so their brain adequately shuts down, so they are able to get a good night's rest. It takes a lot of brain power, to be on a screen all the time. It really does. So they need that time to disconnect before they're able to go to sleep, so they can get the really good rapid eye movement sleep that they need, not to have images still playing in their heads where they're not really getting adequate sleep. And adolescents especially need more sleep. We say 10 and 10. Typically, they need 10 hours of sleep, and the adolescent brain typically doesn't wake up until 10 a.m. So, if they're in school earlier, before 10, they're usually not as effective anyway. About 10 o'clock is when the adolescent brain fully is at its potential to begin the learning process, to really be able to retain information. So just keep that in mind if you've got an adolescent.
Good. I think that's some good information. We're right under an hour. I think we can go to our questions. So for those who are still on the live and was able to listen from the beginning, we're going to do as we always do with each virtual workshop. We're going to have Dr. Davis ask a question. Of course, it will be based on what she went over. We'll give you some time to think about it, and you will put your answer in the comment section. Whoever comment comes through first, you will receive the gift card, and I'll reach out to you accordingly. So there you go. Go ahead and answer your question.
So my question would be to list one of the several parenting traps that I discussed. Any one of them.
Okay. Give you some time on that one. Okay, we have a response from Miss Bethany. She's watching on YouTube, and she commented. They both, well, Bethany's came through first. So Bethany said perfect parent, and Miss Brandy came and said that it's my fault. So they both got it right.
Yes. Good job, lady.
But Bethany was the first one to get it in. So Miss Bethany will get the gift card for this workshop. Thank you so much for both of you all
Yes, thank you.
participating. Awesome. So do you have any closing remarks or anything you want to add, Sage?
Is anybody who has a student who is learning virtually, that you are going to get a tax break. Roy Cooper put something in effect, but you would have had to file taxes before October of 2019. There'll be nothing that you really have to do, no forms to sign. Your name will already be submitted. But I would like to just email that to you so you can read it through. And if you're not eligible, somebody else may be eligible that you know, and you could just give them a heads up.
Okay.
And I want to say Dr. Davis did a phenomenal job. I love when me and Whitney are both taking notes.
Yeah.
That's always great. I think anger and stress will never divorce. I'm gonna put Dr. Sabrina Cook Davis when I in quotations, because that's so helpful, because we get so sometimes we can beat up on ourselves when we become angry and we don't really understand why we're not able to control it in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
So, and embarrassment, you could become embarrassed.
Yep, that's right.
So that's a great takeaway. They are married to each other. You
They
got
are
that,
married.
Whitney? I,
I'm over here like, man, come on.
and the three R's,
Yeah, that was good.
and also resilience coming from family, school, and community, because I know a little about protective factors, but I
Right.
like the way you wove that in. Those are so helpful.
As well
Good.
as controlling what's controllable. I like that.
Yeah, and that sticks to me, because I think if you teach a young person that skill, that could take them so far in life.
Yes, they can. And it will help with the stress level. It will help keep their stresses down because they will learn that skill early on. I can't control this, so why am I worried about it? Because I can't do anything about it anyway. So let me just put all my energy into what I can control. Yes, it is a lifelong learning skill.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is
Thank you.
again, I just want to thank you, Dr. Davis, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Yes.
Rose, for getting Dr. Davis here and letting her share all of her insight with our community and our the people that we serve in Lexington. We, of course, next month we're going to have another workshop. Y'all know it's going to be around the same time. And if you want to speak on what the next workshop is about, just to get.
Well, we had Got Health, and when we had Got Health, we also talked about feeding your family on a budget, which was phenomenal. the people were out of California. That was actually, I didn't even know they were in California. Somebody was visiting California at the time. And that's what I really think we're doing a great job with this. Tell more people about it. And then we have people view afterwards. But next month is Domestic Violence Month. So we will be talking about that a little bit, as well as got wellness, self-care, and mental health. We'll be talking about that because in a lot of communities, sometimes we don't think that we need to have help. Like, I'll get my nails done, I'll get my hair done, but the part of me that no one sees, that's the part of us that we have to nurture and get help for if we need it. So I want to thank you again.
Thank you so much. You all have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.
You too. Y'all have a good one.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.
Bye bye.